Welcome back to the Nancy Levin Show. There is a moment when your body says what your voice has been afraid to admit. And sometimes that moment looks like exhaustion. Sometimes it looks like brain fog. Sometimes it looks like a medical leave ordered by a doctor. And sometimes it looks like sitting in your car before work, wondering how you will physically walk through the door one more time. Burnout is rarely sudden. It's cumulative. It's quiet. It is negotiated with. It is rationalized until one day it is undeniable. And most of us are conditioned to override discomfort. We call it responsibility. We call it loyalty. We call it being strong. But what we are often doing is abandoning ourselves in small, socially acceptable ways. Burnout is not weakness. Burnout is misalignment sustained over time. And here is the reframe that might change everything for you. Burnout is not a breakdown of your capacity. It is the breakdown of the life that no longer fits. So really consider that for a moment. You haven't failed. Your capacity hasn't diminished. What's happened is that the container you've been trying to fit yourself into has become too small for who you are now. And your body, in its infinite wisdom, is forcing you to acknowledge this. When someone says, "My job is breaking me down," what they're really saying is, the version of me that tolerates this is exhausted. And when your body forces you to stop, it's not betrayal, it is intervention. Burnout is often the beginning of your reinvention. But most people miss that moment because they interpret it as failure. Most people think, I should be able to handle this. I've done this for 20 years. I don't want to start over. I'm too old to pivot. Everyone else seems to manage just fine. But burnout is there whispering, this is not sustainable. And reinvention whispers, there is another way. And the space between those two whispers is where fear lives. When you are on medical leave, when you cannot go back into that environment, when you feel untethered from the identity you've carried for decades, there is grief. Because even if the job was draining you, it gave you structure. It gave you a role. It gave you external validation. It gave you a clear answer to the question, what do you do? And when that is stripped away, you're left with a question that can feel terrifying. Who am I without this? But that question is sacred because here's the truth. You've been living as someone's employee or someone's provider or someone's solution. You've been living as a role. And now you have the opportunity, maybe for the first time, to remember who you are beneath the role. And that is not a crisis. That is an opening. And so burnout creates the pause that choice requires. Most people never pause long enough to choose. They endure, they cope, they numb, they distract. But you have been paused. And pause is not a punishment. Now here's where most people get stuck. They try to solve burnout with productivity. They try to figure out the next thing immediately. They think they need a 5-year plan before they're allowed to even exhale. They approach rest like it's another task to complete. They approach healing like it's a problem to solve. They approach this sacred pause like it's an inconvenience to rush through. But burnout recovery is not about doing more differently. It's about becoming differently. You cannot build your next chapter from the nervous system that created the last one. If your pattern has been overgiving, overperforming, holding it all together for everyone, ignoring your own depletion, proving your worth through productivity, then reinvention must begin with the interruption of those patterns. Not with a new job title, not with a different company, not with a side hustle or a business plan, but with a different relationship to yourself. So ask yourself, where have I been saying yes when my body says no? Where have I equated value with usefulness? Where have I confused exhaustion with importance? Where have I made myself indispensable to avoid being expendable? These are the questions that lead to real transformation. Not what should I do next, but who have I been abandoning by doing all of that? Here's the truth. Burnout happens to the most capable people, the dependable ones, the ones who fix, the ones who anticipate, the ones who hold emotional weight for everyone in the room. And here is the shadow of that strength. If you are the one who always holds it together, you never get to fall apart safely. I'm going to say that again. If you are the one who always holds it together, you never get to fall apart safely. You've been the strong one, the reliable one, the one everyone leans on, and somewhere along the way, you internalize the belief that needing support makes you weak, that asking for help means you're failing, that rest is something you have to earn. And so you kept going and going and going until your body said no more. Burnout is sometimes your system's way of saying you deserve to be held too. And here's what I want you to understand. The very skills that made you excellent at your work, the attentiveness, the dedication, the ability to anticipate needs, the capacity to carry the load, those are real gifts. But they become liabilities when you only use them in service of everyone else and never in service of yourself. And what if you brought the same level of attention to your own needs? What if you anticipated your own depletion the way you anticipate everyone else's? What if you held space for your own emotions the way you hold space for others? That's not about being selfish. That's about sustainability and the foundation of real reinvention. Because you can't build a new life on the same foundation as self-abandonment. You can change careers, change cities, change relationships, but if you don't change your pattern of putting yourself last, you will recreate the same burnout in a different context. So before you reinvent your career or your relationships or your life, you must first reinvent your relationship with yourself. Before you build a business, you must rebuild your capacity to honor your own limits. Before you pursue the next shiny thing or next shiny person, you must stop abandoning yourself in the pursuit of external validation. If you're listening right now and recognizing yourself in burnout, in depletion, in that quiet ache of, I cannot keep living like this, I want to invite you into something powerful. Reignite Your Spark is designed specifically for you in a moment like this, when you are at the edge of something ending and something new beginning to emerge. You do not need another productivity system. You need reconnection. Reconnection with your desires, your truth, the part of you that has been buried under obligation and performance. Reignite Your Spark is my 5-day free experience where you will receive daily emails from me, short videos, a workbook, simple prompts and practices to help you come back to yourself in 15 minutes or less a day. You can learn more at nancylevin.com/spark. That's nancylevin.com/spark. Okay, so now let's talk about what reinvention actually looks like from here. What if this season is not about ending your career or ending your relationship? But what if it's simply the end of abandoning yourself inside of it? What if your years of work are not about proving your worth, but about expressing your truth? Reinvention is not about starting over from zero. It's not about burning your life down or blowing it up. Reinvention is the return to the truth of who you are. You are not inexperienced. You are not unqualified. You are not behind. You are not too old. You are carrying decades of wisdom, skills, perspective, understanding of what actually matters and what doesn't. But you can't access that wisdom if you're constantly operating in survival mode. So Burnout asks, what would it look like to build from desire instead of obligation? What would it look like to build from alignment instead of avoidance? What would it look like if you didn't constantly ask yourself, is my desire realistic? Let me offer this. You do not need certainty. You need movement. You need permission to explore without having all the answers first. You need space to try things, to fail, to discover what lights you up after years of focusing only on what's required of you. Reinvention is not one dramatic leap. It is a series of small, self-honoring decisions. Today, that might look like blocking out 1 hour for your passion project and actually protecting that hour. Having one honest conversation about what is no longer working in your relationship. Declining one draining commitment without over-explaining it. Resting without feeling guilty about it. Exploring an interest without needing to monetize it immediately. Saying, I don't know, instead of pretending to have it all figured out. These small acts of self-honoring, they are the foundation of sustainable reinvention. Because real change doesn't happen when you white knuckle it. It happens when you build a new relationship with yourself, one where your needs matter most, your limits are honored, and your desires are valid. You get to choose what you are going to bring forward and what you leave behind. You get to choose what kind of work you want to do and which relationships are sustainable for you. You get to choose who you become, but those choices require something from you. They require you to stop treating this pause as an emergency to fix. They require you to honor the grief of what's ending instead of rushing past it. They require you to sit with uncertainty instead of immediately filling the void with the next thing. They require rest, real rest, not I'll rest as soon as I finish this rest. The rest that isn't contingent on productivity. Rest that doesn't have to be earned. Rest that's simply acknowledged as a human need. When you are operating under chronic stress, your brain does not pivot into clarity overnight. You might feel foggy, unmotivated, frozen, unclear about what you want or who you are or what comes next. This is not necessarily a problem to solve. It is a nervous system recalibrating. So before you reinvent your career, your relationship, you must regulate your body. Before you build something out there, you must rebuild your own capacity. Before you make your next move, you must first make space for yourself. Reinvention is a process of reclamation. And that process looks like rest without guilt, saying no without apology, letting yourself not know, trusting that clarity will come when you stop forcing it. If you rush this, you recreate the same dynamic in a different costume. Same burnout, different job. Same exhaustion, different relationship. Same pattern of abandoning yourself, different context. But if you honor this pause, you will use it to actually change your relationship with yourself, with work, with rest, with your worth, then what you build next will be fundamentally different. Not just in form, but in foundation. So hear me when I say you are not too late, you are not too old, you are not too far in. You are right on time with the version of your life that includes you now. And if this is your turning point, let it be sacred. Let the breakdown be the breaking open. Let the ending be the invitation. Let the exhaustion be the truth teller. Because what if this moment, this painful, disorienting, scary moment is exactly what you need in order to finally choose yourself? So ask yourself, if my burnout is not an ending, but an invitation, what is it inviting me toward? And when you are ready to explore that invitation, I encourage you to sign up for Reignite Your Spark. It's completely free. NancyLevin.com/spark. You do not have to figure this out alone. You don't have to have all the answers before you begin. You just have to be willing to stop abandoning yourself and start honoring what's true. Your body brought you to this moment for a reason. Listen to it.